All right. It's recording. Yeah. Hello everyone. You are watching the NWSL Challenge Cup Rewind on She Talks Ball. My name is Radha, and I have my co-host with me, Romel, and we're going to be discussing the NWSL throughout the season. But we're going to start with the Challenge Cup. So we're going to take you through the format. We're going to take you through the teams and also our predictions on who's going to make it to the final and who's going to win. So let's get right into it. Romel, why don't you start us off with your just an idea of the format for anyone listening and how this Challenge Cup is going to take place?
Hey, Romelia, and I've been following the NWSL since inception. We've got something really interesting. I think for the first time ever, there's a cup tournament that's kind of in a very serious mode. That's sort of playing into the league schedule itself. So I think it's going to be very interesting. They've also sort of, taken into consideration COVID protocols, and we're looking at a two division format here for the first time. What are your thoughts on it, given the format and stuff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's very interesting that this kind of came and sprung out of the entire pandemic that took place. And this would never have existed if, the world went on as it did. So it's really cool to see how the league adapted and has brought on this 1 month tournament to give everyone high intensity competitive football. And obviously they've taken the East and the West division because the States is quite large as a country and they're not able to travel so much. But when we look at the divisions a little closer, we'll see, I think there is one very dominant division in this, and it's going to come down to who can actually topple the stronger team on that day to take the trophy home, because I feel like the winner of the Challenge Cup is going to come out of that strong division. That's what I feel. But, without further ado, let's get into the teams. We'll give everyone an idea of who all are playing. Yeah.
One very quick note, which I forgot of but the Challenge Cup was the first ever sporting event in the States, and kudos to the whole management pull it off, not just successfully but without a single positive case last year, bang in the middle of the pandemic. So I mean that was like mind blowing. Yeah, but going on next, what do we talk about?
Yeah, so adding to that, it was actually a 493% viewership increase in the NWSL. So they actually brought a tournament back and they streamed it very well globally, and they saw a lot of viewership go up. And I think that's great investment on part of the management, the administration, and hopefully we see a lot of that to continue in the future. So let's go division-wise so we have a better idea of who's playing, right? So take us through maybe the East Division or the West Division.
So you want to go first with Louisville?
Yeah, all right. So Louisville is a new introduction to the NWSL. They're coming in for the first time this year. This will be the first time they play the Challenge Cup. And interesting for Pride also, it'll be the first time that they play because they missed out last year due to COVID problems. But yeah, Louisville is a team that had a big say in the expansion draft that took place recently. And they picked a lot of people, including the rights of Kristen Press and Tobin Heath, who are not on the roster right now because they're over in England. But when I had a first look at this roster, I did see it to be a little smaller than the other rosters of the other teams. So I was wondering a little bit why they have such a sort of condensed roster, especially when it's such a long season and such a taxing season for all the players when it comes to the NWSL, not just the Challenge Cup, but going on to the regular season and the bigger prize that they're fighting for itself. So yeah, Michelle Betos, who's in goal, has been, I think as a Rain fan, you'll know her pretty well. She's been one of the league's, has been there in the league from the very beginning, I feel, and she's the only goalkeeper to also have scored a goal. So that's an interesting fact that you have in the NWSL. So she's going to play a big part in this newfound team because of the experience that she brings. She knows all the opponents that she's going to be playing. And, apart from that, I'm a little concerned for the team having not a lot of high-profile figures. Again, we've established that that's not needed to win a Challenge Cup, as Houston have proved last year. But I feel like they might get overwhelmed by the occasion just because they aren't they're very new to it, obviously. So I'm a little concerned looking at the squad, and that'll probably also reflect in where I've put them on my table. But yeah, Romel, what are your thoughts on
that? First off, why don't you give us your pick for the Challenge Cup?
Right. So my player would be Yuki Nagasato. She is a Japanese player. Again, she's been in the Chicago Red Stars for a long time now. She's been one of those assist machines for Sam Kerr's Golden Boot era. So she's going to be, again, a crucial cog in the entire engine of Louisville because, okay, they have a good backline, but you need to get goals to win eventually. So she's going to be one who is going to be, people are going to pivot around her, and she's going to put the ball in a lot for people to finish. So she's going to be the one to watch for me.
Awesome. So yeah, well, first up, my notes for Racing Louisville is that, the whole European wannabe cringe names. I don't think like that should be the way ahead. Please, NWSL, please stop asking teams to get into that. But yeah, they've done really well with what they've been doing so far, including them listing out pronouns on their website for their players, and I think it's such a refreshing thing to actually see a team come in and be committed to sort of making a difference. So I think hats off to them. They really seem to be serious about what they're trying to do here. Yeah, I think again, like you said, the roster is just filled with people who are either new to the scene or. But of course, the flip side is that I know that a whole bunch of these players are like a lot of very hardworking players. What I'm really excited about is the fact that we are seeing Yuki take on like a leadership role on the team, which is super exciting. I think she's never gotten her absolute due at the Red Stars, and to see her come in here. So yeah, again, she's kind of my pick, even though there are a whole bunch of these players that I am going to be rooting for. There's obviously Betos from, Betos historically the person who like saved the rain that first season when Hope Solo wasn't available. So yeah, always love for her. This Simon, Julie Ashley, Addison Merrick, Milliet, CC Kaiser, McCaskill. So a whole bunch of these names of players that I really want to be seeing doing well. But yeah, for me, absolutely it has to be Nagasato again. I just can't wait to see what she's doing with this team in that role. So yeah, that's Louisville. Who's next? The Courage.
All right. I'll start with the Courage. So the Courage has been, if you look at American domestic league football, it's been sort of the Lyon, you could say. It's been the biggest competitor. They've won, I think, 2 NWSL titles, if I'm not wrong. But the thing with Courage is they didn't have too good of a Challenge Cup last year. And their USWNT stalwarts and Crystal Dunn has moved out. Sam Mewis and Abby Dalkemper are over at Man City now. So you argue that their big high-profile names are not there anymore. But on the flip side, you always say that they weren't really the reasons that the team, or not just the reason that the team was doing that well. They have a very, very strong and experienced setup right from the goal up till the forward line, and Lynn Williams, who has been carrying this team throughout her her goal contributions every year have been fantastic. And obviously in goal there was Steph LeBay and others in the previous years. This year we have Seattle Reigns. Casey Murphy has come over, who is a very tall and a very athletic keeper. So I'm excited to see what she provides to the team, because I believe she's going to be the starting keeper for them. And Abby Erceg, obviously the Kiwi captain and a very experienced player at the back line for the Courage. Now the Courage have a lot to prove because they really missed out doing well in the Challenge Cup last year. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the entire lineup, because Courage it almost seems like the eyes are on them, the pressure is on them. They didn't do really well last year, but they're still expected to win, similar to some of the big European giants that we're seeing today. So it's going to be very interesting. Now I'll quickly tell you my pick, and it has to be the Brazilian Davinha. And I feel like a lot of my picks are going to come out of that midfield area, because that's really where you rally the troops from. You can connect with the back line, you connect with the forward line, and you really make things happen there. And she is a very good set piece taker. She's a tiny, quick-footed, a player, but she's very, very good when it comes to contributing to the team, not just in goal contributions, but also tackles, also chasing down the ball and winning it back. So she's got to be my pick. You have to watch out for her. But having said that, the entire team is one that you just have to watch how they play, how they move, because there are going to be a lot of eyes on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's when you look at the Courage, this basically a big example of the difference that a good coaching setup makes. I mean, though personally I'm not a big fan of Riley at all, but yeah, I mean his work has shown results, and I think it kind of does sort of play into also the whole physicality of the American tradition of playing soccer. Of course, now to be honest, like the courage is right on top as far as teams that I'm really going to hate on because of that grab of Casey Murphy at the end of last season. That really hurt. But I mean, going ahead, there's so many ex-Rain stars on this team. It's not funny. There's Pickett, there's Havana Solon, there's so many of them, and I think again, it's going to be strange looking at the courage because they're not like packed with the stars like they used to be. But there's, I think, enough of these players that know how to sort of work within the system. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Riley does best. It doesn't matter who the player is. It is all about the system. And, and I'm just really excited to see what they do this time without their stars. My pick is again going to be another X-Rain star. That's Elizabeth Addo. So I'm just really excited to see what she does here. I mean, of course, I really want to see what Pickett does within a good setup, with good strategy. So yeah, I mean, maybe these two are like my standouts in terms of who I would want to see doing well on this team. But yeah, moving on. Next up, the Pride.
Yeah, I think following Carson Pickett, the Pride is who we should talk about. She's been part of the team for quite a few years now, obviously not with them anymore. But again, the Orlando Pride is another team that didn't play the Challenge Cup last year. So along with Racing Louisville, it's going to be their first entry at the Challenge Cup. They had COVID problems last year. Now again, this team is packed with what you'd call high-profile players. Like you have Alex Morgan, you have Marta, you have the Ali Krieger and Ashton Harris. So this team, technically you think that, hey, they should be really good. Like, they should be scoring goals. But we've seen over the years in the NWSL that they struggle towards the mid or the bottom side of the table. They pull out wins here and there, especially when they play versus my team. For some reason, they pull out wins, which don't matter, but that really drops my team standing. But at the end of the day, they don't really do well. And they're always trying to figure out new ways to get better. I feel like they're not quick enough in adapting, and especially when international windows come, NWSL still goes on. That's how the NWSL is structured, and I think they get hurt in that international window because they rely a lot on the US players, on the Brazilian players, but it doesn't really happen. So for them, it's going to be a comeback. They have to stamp their authority in this time. They have the relatively easier division to play in, so they are one performance away really from winning this. That's how they have to think of that. And looking at the players, you'll recognize a lot of them on the field. When you watch an Orlando Pride game, you'll recognize a lot of them. When you hear their names on the commentators' lips, you'll understand who they are, you'll know where they are. It's just a question of them coming together. And I feel because of a lot of shifting around and people coming in, going out for international camps, the team has never really connected well or gelled well. So hoping that this 1 month of them just having to play 5-6 games to do really well, they do that. My standout player, now again, it's interesting. There are a lot of them. I'm looking forward to Gunny Yon's daughter. It's her first year at the Pride. She was taken from my team, Utah Royals, in the previous year. She, in fact, scored Utah Royals franchise's first ever goal. So versus the Pride, that was. So that's interesting that they picked her up. She's, again, one of those engines in the midfield. She's, I believe, the one who's going to have to work with Marta to give the ball to the Sid Leroux or give the ball to the Alex Morgans to get some goals on their score sheet. And she, although is a new entrant to the team, is going to find a spot in the 11 very quickly. So for me, it would be, watch out for her. Obviously, there's, I think Ali Riley again has come back. She missed out last year because the team didn't play. She's been one who's moved all over the world to play, be it Europe, be it Sweden, be it England, wherever it may be. So she brings a lot of experience with her and a lot of different styles of play. So she's going to be a second one to watch. Now, Romel, why don't you tell us about the Pride?
Yeah, I think, again, perennially uninspiring, practically. They have basically fallen into the same trap as perhaps the Dash did. They went after names to begin with. And I think I don't know. It just seems to be a case of management just trying too hard to sort of interfere in terms of what's happening on the pitch, which is why we see a big disconnect in terms of who they've kind of brought in on the coaching front, but that never having translated into results. Basically, I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, they've got a frightening squad. I mean, they should be running riot in the league at all points, but it just doesn't translate. And I think it does seem to be a system that's not really set up right. And I think it's symptomatic of the way a lot of clubs in the US are run. There's, I think, a little too much of the management, I would say, non-technical management that sort of has too much of input on the field. And I think this is a glaring example of how that has happened. I'm hoping that coaching does turn around this year, just in order to make this division a little more exciting. And yeah, I think in terms of players, like you mentioned, what I'm really happy about is that they have stepped up and they've brought in players that are more of the hardworking sort rather than the big names. This time, like you mentioned, Riley, they've brought in Gunny, Timrak is now in the team, McLeod is in. So I mean, it's these players rather than say big names that they should have possibly looked at in previous seasons as well. But well, here we are. My pick is definitely going to be Timrak. There's a whole bunch of these players looking at making a mark again. Timrak from her first season, standout player for FCKC under Antonovsky. She kind of disappeared for the whole bunch. Actually retired last season and has now come back and is putting on a jersey for the Pride. So I'm really excited. I think she's got a whole bunch to prove, and yeah, I'm hoping to see another Kristen Lewis kind of a story here with her. So yeah, that's the Pride for us. Who will we on to next? Sky Blue. All right, your thoughts on Sky Blue?
All right, Sky Blue. They're a team that honestly has my heart. And I may not like support them or put their jersey on, but I'm always rooting for them. And I'm not really sure why that is, but it's just been that kind of a story with them. They've again, struggled at the bottom of the pack for quite a long time, having had big names such as Sam Kerr, who won the Golden Boot with them and has had historic games and things like that. But again, one or two names is never enough for that team to do well, because again, it's a team sport and it comes down to an entire contribution. So Sky Blue went into last year's Challenge Cup with not a lot of expectations, but they did really well. They reached the semifinals. A lot of thanks to Kaylin Sheridan, who was a goalkeeper and kept a lot of balls out of the back of their net. She's again a Canadian goalkeeper and probably going to be their number one goalkeeper for a while now. So Sky Blue has the story. They've had a shake-up within the administration over the team as well. So I'm hoping to see a very confident and stable-headed team coming into this Challenge Cup. They've now played with each other for a while, and they know each other. And you look at the roster, and there are big names as well. There are hardworking players too. So it seems to be like they can mix and match and find combinations that work very well inside and outside of the international window. So I believe that a good chunk of the NWSL Challenge Cup is actually within an international window. So we might not see a lot of players on their roster here, but I believe this is one of the teams that will be successful even without those players. So I'm hoping to see a good, gritty, hardworking performance by this team. Now, having said that, I'm looking at this team, and the player that stands out for me, I think, has to be McCall Zaboni. She's again been one of those NWSL players. When you think of the NWSL, think of her. She's been with Courage and their winning seasons as well. She's been picked up by Sky Blue recently. She is obviously an American, has not had too much success with the national team. So I believe she will be there for the entire Challenge Cup. And the experience that she brings to the side. Now, I also would have picked Kaylin Sheridan. I'm not sure if she's fit for the Challenge Cup, because she did pick up a knock, as she believes. Hopefully she's fit. She's going to be crucial to the team. But McCall Zaboni is going to be one who doesn't just use her skill. She's going to use her voice on the field. I bet, if there are no fake crowd sounds, you're going to hear her as well, because she's going to be instructing everyone where to move, how to move. She's going to be the one talking at the halftime circle or at the full-time circle, wherever it may be. She is that kind of leader figure in the group. So watch out for her. She has obviously a lot of accolades behind her when it comes to being a really good midfield player. So she would be my pick for Sky Blue.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I get you. Sky Blue just again so symptomatic of how women's sports are kind of looked at in the first world country in the world, and it's like it was a shame, absolutely, the way that this team ran for the first few years, and we've had players like Sam Kerr, of course, voicing her concerns about how things were run, and that's when it all came. I mean, it took a whistleblower to sort of get them to really sit up and take things seriously and fire. Like the people that they fired were not just incompetent; they were absolute disgrace to what it means to be in a sports setup. They've turned it around. I think they've got incredible people in positions that are taking decisions now, and you can see that this is now a team that I'm absolutely rooting for all the time. And they've also signed up some amazing talent. Like you mentioned, I think it's going to be interesting seeing Zabani sort of running that midfield for them and being that senior player on the squad right now. And players that I really do love are definitely Iffy and Purse. But my pick for the player I really want to see, having a standout season has to be now. It's like, how can you not root for now? Like that. So yeah, that's given that I'm really hoping Stanley does well this year.
All right. So the Washington Spirit, again, I think it'll be a bit repetitive when we say they've been just at the middle of the table for a while now. And that is just representative of this entire division, isn't it? It's got North Carolina Courage and then these 4 teams that haven't, really made their mark or stamped their authority ever. So that's why we really felt that this was maybe the easier of the divisions. Having said that, we've told you the stories of the teams and how they are rising. So Courage are up for a challenge. Talking about Washington Spirit, you would recognize, you put a face to it. It's Rose Lavelle, who's been there for a while now. She's not going to be there this time, so that's a new thing. But looking at their 2020 Challenge Cup performance, the future legend or the rising rookie or whatever you want to call it was from the Washington Spirit, because we saw some really good performances at times where we didn't expect it. So this Washington Spirit side again is one which doesn't have too many high-profile players, but they have players who work together. They have players who are hardworking, and I mean now you look at the lineup and they have Emily Sonnet, they have Kelly O'Hara. So looking at that fullback side, or just looking at it from a defensive perspective, I think that they're pretty sorted. They have Aubrey Bledsoe in goal, who has been again one of those NWSL legends who doesn't seem to get game time with her national team, which is the US Women's National Team, but it has been a consistent shot stopper when it comes to whichever team she's played for in the NWSL. So I see Washington Spirit conceding very few goals, hopefully. And that momentum that they gain in the backside or the defensive half has to be converted into more goals, because that's the way they're going to make it to the top of their division and the table as a whole. But good signs for them. I don't see them essentially toppling North Carolina Courage in this division especially, but I do believe that with just some consistent hard work, they can really make a name for themselves and generate a lot of momentum getting into the NWSL season that's coming up from May to November, something like that. So yeah, for me, there are a lot of these names that about. There are these gritty defenders like Paige Nielsen, and then you have Bailey Feist in the midfield area who I mean, I remember her for picking up a few yellow cards in the Challenge Cup last year, but I also remember her for taking crucial penalties and making sliding tackles and saving a goal scoring run. So I think my pick for the Washington Spirit, having now dropped all these names, it'll be Andy Sullivan, who is a US Women's National Team player. I hope she gets time at the Spirit. I don't think she'll be called up for the international window. I could be wrong though, but if she's not called up for the US Women's National Team camp, she's going to be a crucial part of this Washington Spirit setup. She's very young. She's a Stanford graduate, and she has brought a lot to this team already in the little time that she's been there. So I believe she will also take the armband. And if she does, it's going to be a question of her putting her leadership abilities to the test and carrying this team that does not have too many accolades behind it into a division that they can do really well in if they sort of just rally their troops and put out performances when they make them. So that would be my player to watch for the Spirit. Romel, what about you?
Right. So yeah, the Spirit is again another one of these with like really shaky traditions in the NWSL. They had that whole spat with Rapinoe when she was kneeling. They tried that absolute rubbish stunt of playing the national anthem when the players were in the locker rooms. So so of course, shady management, at the beginning of the NWSL stage, but of course now management has diversified, and there's a whole bunch of new names that are coming there. But again, very symptomatic of the way women's sports kind of takes any sort of working structure in the US, and it's really disappointing. Absolutely underwhelming coaching staff. I mean, don't get me wrong. Richie Burke has basically done really well. The team has sort of definitely prospered under him. But when I mean underwhelming, it does not mean incompetent. I mean, competence is completely different. But what I mean is that uh, this is the elite league in the US, and your coaching staff has to be representative of the sort of ambition a club has. And given that, it always seems that the US clubs seem to be flying economy all the time. They're just not willing to take a risk on getting great coaching. All of the names are either people who have been in the US scene, or are ex-players or have coached in college. But that is not the standard that you need to be looking at when you're talking about running a professional women's team. Um, and I think that's something I really admired about the Rain. The first year, for a team that had no tradition and was starting from scratch, they were the ones that were really ambitious. They sort of reached out over the English Channel and got the top women's coach from Arsenal, basically Laura Harvey, who came in to coach. So I mean that is how you sort of stamp your ambitions on a league. But having said that, they have definitely made an impact by making some really surprising signings, especially with their Japanese contingent this year. So that's been really good. I also love the fact that they've signed up Sydney Schneider from the Jamaican national team. So that all of this is like very exciting, and I think they definitely do have a roster that from the offense to goal. I think they've got a whole bunch of talent that are definitely right up there and gunning to be some of the top stars of the future. For example, my pick would definitely be Takarada from the Japanese team, and again a name for the future. She's already stamped her name across all the junior levels when it comes to world soccer. So really hoping to see her actually take this league by storm and show what she's capable of. So yeah, that's my pick for the Spirit. And I think we're done with East Division. So very quickly, who do you think is going to be the winner from this division?
It's got to be North Carolina Courage for me.
No, I'm going to stick my neck out and I'm going to say Sky Blue FC.
I'll take that. Yeah. That's what you're saying in any case. But yeah. All right. Good shout.
Awesome. So cool. So then we move on. We have the West Division. You want to start with what we've got? I think Chicago.
All right. So the Red Stars were runners-up in the Challenge Cup last year. So they had a pretty good deep run when it comes to the Challenge Cup. They got big names on their team and have always been sort of in contention of, winning every matchup that they play. It's never been a case of, oh, Red Stars, okay, we can beat them. It's always been a case of, it's going to be a tough fight. They had Sam Kerr, who's again the name that I'm going to bring up, for 2-3 years, where she had an absolutely golden run and really, helped the team's status and standing in the table itself. But look, this team is one that honestly, if my team comes up against them, I would be at the edge of my seat. It's that kind of a team where they're a little unpredictable. In the semi-final of the Challenge Cup last year, Bianca St. George's, one of their fullbacks, went up and scored. So they have this streak of being unpredictable, which makes them dangerous. They've got great speedy players. We had Samka, who's obviously left now, but they have Kelia Watt, who has been one that has bounced off Sam Kerr and has bounced off the other forwards there when it comes to making her mark. I think she's been a really good player, link-up player, a player who plays in tandem with the other players on the team. So Chicago is one that you can't really mess around with. They have Alyssa Nair in goal, arguably the best keeper in the world if you want to think of the national team setup and everything. So she's definitely going to be priming to stop every shot that comes her way. That's pretty much Chicago. I'll tell Romel to take over, but they've got a few U.S. women's national team names. Julie Ertz in the defense midfield, wherever they play her. So it's going to be interesting to see how well this team does. They have, again, this entire division has the capability of any of the teams coming out on top. Same goes for Chicago. So my player to watch here. So there are a lot of players who people know of, and so I'm not going to mention one of them. I'm going to mention Dani Colafrico. She's again doesn't have too much time with the U.S. Women's National Team, but she's been one who has just been like a silent killer within the Chicago squad. She's been a very gritty one who runs back, one who's constantly moving on the field. You never see her resting, or you never see her just taking a breath. It's been a case of how can I provide, how can I contribute. So for her to now at least step up and make a name, so she's been a Chicago player for a while now. So she has that loyalty within her side. The fans know her really well. So it's a question of just stepping up and getting into that spotlight, be it with goal contributions, be it with defensive contributions. I'm going to definitely keep an eye out for her, and you guys should too. But Romel, more about Chicago from you.
Yeah, so again, perennial contenders. But I would definitely sort of go on record and say that I just don't think Lolly Dames is the coach that should be at the helm of a professional team again. Because I think there's so much of a reliance on just individual quality and their long balls. You see that there's very little strategy when it comes to sort of having a team style that comes to the front. It's always reactive to the teams that they're playing, and you can always look at any of their crunch games, and you can see that there has never been confidence that this is a team that can really kick on and win something major. And I think that is a big influence of the coaching setup there. I think James has his own fabulous qualities, especially the way he works at the draft. I think he's great at recognizing talent, but I don't think he is the absolute pinnacle of what coaching talent should be. So given that, I think again the way they have sort of set up, I would pick Sarah Gordon to be my standout player for the Challenge Cup at least. It's been so heartwarming to see her sort of come through the ranks and sort of be a regular in the starting 11 right now. I'm definitely looking at her sort of taking a spot on the national roster someday. So
All right. So the Houston Dash, I think we've spoken about them quite a bit with reference to the other teams. They've been one that have been silent. No one has really considered them a very strong competitor of the title. In a fixture, surely, they're going to put up a fight. They're not going to back down. But are they going to win the title? No one really ever thought it until it happened in the last Challenge Cup. That's just how the story has been for the Dash. And the second they won that Challenge Cup, everything exploded for them when it comes to the loyalty from their city and from their state that they experienced, or just the level of viewership and money directed towards them. it was massive. So for this team, they are coming into this tournament as defending champions. And that's going to be a status that they hold. They've won 100% of the challenge cups that have existed in this world. So this team, again, they're known as those, you recognize them with their bright orange jerseys on the field. They play very, very gritty football. I think that's the way to put it. It's just that if I'm going to get this ball from you by a tackle, I'm going to tackle you. There's no question about it. I'm not going to chase you until you lose the ball. I'm going to get the ball right here. I think that's what they play. And Rachel Daly has been this versatile, gritty player. You see her in the national team for England as well. That entire aggressiveness that she has, she brings to the squad, and this squad is revolving around her when it comes to how to get goals. How do we get goals? Is you take a corner and you find Rachel Daly's head. That's just been the story. I don't know if it's the best strategy, but it's been what's worked for them so far. Having said that, in the past 1 year, they've found a really good core group of players who do what they do really well and have contributed to this team to actually get into winning ways and be one of those competitors where any team that comes up against them, they're afraid and they're planning and they're scurrying around figuring out how to kind of counter these goals that are coming into our net. So Shea Groom, Christy Mewes, Rachel Daly are those very visible trio up in the Houston Dash setup. Jane Campbell in goal, one of the most underrated goalkeepers in the world, I feel. Again, another Stanford grad. Very, very safe pair of hands, very athletic as well. Somehow hasn't found time on the US women's national team roster. I think that's just a story that's been consistent with the team. Once they find players, they stick with them until they retire almost. It seems to me like that. But yeah, coming back to the Dash, a very, and also I feel like this team has a lot of great personalities. You never really see the personality of a footballer, when it comes to any tournament, but somehow they manage to share their personality with everyone, be it the style that they play or be it their social media content out of the field, whatever it may be. So it's a great team to follow. You always feel like you're almost talking to them in a way. So I would recommend, if you don't have a team yet, I would recommend the Dash. They're not my team, but they're a team that will not disappoint you. They're very entertaining. And yeah, so my pick for this team, let's see. They got a bunch of good players. I'm going to go with the Canadian forward, Nichelle Prince. Has been one who, again, not too many eyes on her, not too many times that her name has been said, but she's a speedy forward for the Houston Dash and one of the quickest in the NWSL as well. And she really has the possibility and the opportunities to break and counter towards the opponent's goal. And looking at that good midfield that Houston has, they're going to be hoping to release her a lot and use her in behind to get some goals. Yeah, so that's going to be my pick for Houston. Romel, what about you?
Yeah, I think, again, super exciting. I think, like you said, it's just a bunch of these personalities that you see on the field. I would also say that these are personalities that you would absolutely love if they were on your own team, but you would absolutely hate if you're facing them. For instance, Shea Groom, for example, biggest example. Like she gets into absolute dogfights on the field, but I mean, when she's on your team, how can you not root for this? Like you said, there is this core of players right now that are absolutely playing their hearts out for that team, and just has begun to show with results right now. I think they found a balance with the coaching setup. They found a balance with the players that sort of want to be there and make a difference. And that's, I think, been their biggest success. So yeah, given the resources of the parent organization and stuff, it definitely was another example of underwhelming coaching decisions in terms of who they pick. But yeah, I think the results have kind of thankfully been there. And I think my player for the tournament definitely is going to be Christy Mewes again, because I am on the Mewes bandwagon. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do this time on. Oh, Kansas City.
Kansas City.
Go for it.
I know they're going to break my heart. I can already feel it. Kansas City, they've had a great run in the early seasons of the NWSL when they were coached by Radha Gupta. I believe they won the NWSL back-to-back. And then they dissolved and up came Utah Royals. which was a team that then I was directed to as a fan. I started following Utah. They signed Becky Sauerbrunn, they signed Kristen Press. I said, hello, like this is really cool. I want to support this team. Again, underwhelming performance from their end in the couple of seasons that they played. And again, there was just a big, problem with the administration and the ownership of Utah Royals. I'm sure, Romel, you can shed some more light on it. But that, again, there was a big controversy and the team was dissolved. The owner backed out and nobody from Utah bought the team. So it shifted back to Kansas City ownership. So again, this new, renewed and rejuvenated Kansas City is for the first time back in the NWSL. For the first time, they're playing the Challenge Cup as Kansas City. This team, again, a lot of players of that core group of Kansas, Utah, Kansas, still within this side. Going to be led by Amy Rodriguez, I believe. So again, one of those really fighter players, she has this big personality on the field and she's not afraid to fight for her team, I like that sort of loyalty when it comes to a captain. So look out for her. She's going to be in the forward line. She's very quick and she's known to move her hips a lot and do a lot of fakes and get the ball. So watch out for that. But Kansas City as a whole, they've been underwhelming for me. Just looking at the roster itself, they have very good players, but I feel like they might not be able to really come together as a team. I hope I'm proved wrong, but I feel like a heartbreak coming. So I'm going to stop right here. But yeah, they've got great players in Rachel Corsi in the back line, Lola Bonta, who's you've never really heard of for any national team setup, but she's been one who is consistently providing for Kansas City and consistently being the one on the score sheet, being the one who players, buy jerseys with her name on it or look out for her every time the team steps on the field. So my pick would have to be Lola Bonta. She's got little streaks in her hair, so that's probably how you can identify her. But she's one who is a workhorse for the team and is very crucial in connecting the wings and the forward line together when it comes to goal contributions. So I hope they do really well. My thoughts are with them. I'm going to be watching them and backing them. But it's a tough competition they're coming up against. So let's see how they do. What do you think?
Yeah, I think again, like you said, this is a core team that's been, FCKC, Utah, back to Kansas City. And oh my God, this is heartbreaking. I mean, the shitstorm that was the FCKC management, the shitstorm that was the Utah management, and I'm seriously only wishing all sorts of good things and all sorts of love for especially the players who've been through all of that, because how do you put players in such positions time and time again? And this has to be a big failing on the part of the NWSL. They definitely have to sort of look back and take stock, make sure that they're doing better, make sure that they don't fail players like this again, because it's absolutely shameful. And this is your professional league that is being showcased to the world, and that's no way you can put your top players into situations like this. So yeah, anyways, moving forward, again, so glad to see another team back in Kansas City, but again, so underwhelming in terms of their coaching picks again. Yes, of course, Hugh Williams was part of the Vlatko era back in FCKC, but come on, as a team, you can really be ambitious. There are enough of people in the sporting world with experience in the women's game that could come in. And I think what a lot of the US clubs miss out on is the fact that, having a great coaching setup also brings in a lot of goodwill. And it also gives you a great the ability to pull in international players. And, it has only been, some epic setups. I mean, I wouldn't really put Riley into an epic setup, but the fact that Riley did have international experience, as did Laura Harvey, is why we saw players like, Little, we saw Manon, I forget his name, the Spanish player for Utah, who also played for Thorns.
Yeah,
okay. Vera Bouquet. So, I mean, it is only when you have coaching staff that has the ability to bring in quality like that is when you can truly showcase your ambitions. Yeah, again, so much of potential there, and they sort of missed the mass of that. But still, I mean, it is still a hardworking team. There are so many across the board that you can absolutely root for. Two very interesting sign-ups, as well as very exciting players are definitely Laraket and Togarsu. But the player that I'm going to pick has to be another Rain star. I'm looking at Darren Jenkins, and I'm really hoping she, goes injury-free and is able to really shine in this tournament. So yeah, that's my pick for KC. And moving on next, we have OL Rain. Go for it. Let's hear you take on that.
All right. OL Reign has been, again, another team that when my team comes up against, there's a sense of fear. There's a sense of, we have, it's a big task for us. And they've just been that kind of a team where, as you've mentioned, they've got great names and they've got great leadership. And that entire setup that they have has ensured a sustainable sense of growth for the players and for the team as a whole. Maybe they would have liked to win a little more, but the way that they're growing, they're ensuring that they have a good long run setup, and it's not just a chance of picking up high profile players and trying to do something very quickly. It's a very sustained growth that they're doing, so it's very nice to see. Karen Barnsley is on loan from Manchester City. She's come over to Seattle Reign, so there'll be a new face that you see this time around. So with Seattle Reign, again, they have a core group of players that have been with the team for a while. You have the Megan Rapinoe, obviously, is the big name that you have there. You have Shirley Cruz, who's been within the midfield for a while. So this team obviously has just lost their big keeper, that you can argue the one who did really well for them last year in Casey Murphy. So there's going to be big boots to fill over there. But this team as a whole, I'm not going to spend too much time. Romel, you're going to take over for this team. You've been following them for a while. I'm going to tell you my pick for this team. It's got to be now a player that's moved from Utah Royals to Seattle Reign. It's got to be Sierra King. She's a youngster. I believe she was a rookie last year, and Utah picked her up, and she was very good for our team. I am not sure why she left, but you have to, again, as you mentioned, players look at leadership, they look at management, they look at overall setup, environment of the team. So yeah, I wish her all the best there. She's one to watch for sure. She's a very feisty player on the field and a really personality. I recommend you guys follow her on Twitter as well. She's very funny. But that's my pick for Seattle Reign. Romel, over to you for this one.
Yeah, so it's going to be like a small little homie session. I just cannot say enough about what the management of the Predmos has been to the league itself. Especially from day one, and we've seen that on the pitch as well. So I think after a very, very long time, I think we've possibly got one of the few frightening rosters, in the league at the moment. And this is like real quality without even considering the fact that we definitely know that, players of the caliber, Marjan or Renard, are on their way here. And I mean, there's also Bohadi, but I'm not someone who rates Bohadi very highly. but given that, I think it's hopefully a roster that really pulls it through, and we see some silverware that's really been, something that we've fallen short on all through the, NWSL history so far. I definitely love and I root for every single player that's in the sport. But I think in terms of players that I definitely want to watch are two newbies, King, as you mentioned, and Angelina. I think are the players that I definitely want to see come in to their own and sort of really make a stand on, how they play in the NWSL. So yeah, looking forward to that. I think we've come down to our last team that we're reviewing, the Portland Thorns. Go for it.
All right, the Portland Thorns is the last team in this West division. You can probably, after this team's review, you can understand why this division is highly competitive. It's unpredictable almost. You can't tell who's going to come out on top. This team, has the record for the highest fan attendance in any NWSL game. So they've got a rich history of loyal fans and a great support system that this team has. So Portland Thorns, again, has been one that has been contending for that title ever since they came into existence. They've got the likes of Tobin Heath, Alex Morgan, Ali Long. They kind of cultivated these players and now they've, dispersed to their clubs. But this team has a lot of experienced players. When you look at their roster, you'd see they've got Becky Sauerbrunn back from Utah. I'm not a big fan of that, but that happened. They've got, the highest international goal scorer, Christine Sinclair, who keeps showing up time and time again for Portland Thorns when they need her to. In the midfield, you have Lindsay Horan, again, a big name for the US, a big name, with her flying, diving headers. I'm sure you'll see more of that in the Challenge Cup as well. So this team has a great, I feel like every player is fighting for their spot in that 11. And that really shows competition within the side. In the last Challenge Cup, they had Bella Bixby, who had this really massive game in goal for them. And then, she got injured. And then they had Brick Eckerstrom come in and have another massive game for them. So to see goalie number 1 and goalie number 2 do really well for you shows that you are building not just 11 players, but you're building a good roster of 24 or 25, whatever that might be. So this team, I have actually vouched for them to go on and win the entire Challenge Cup. I feel like, just reading the names on their sheet, Crystal Dunn is with them. I mean, you just can't be any more jealous of that team, having Crystal Dunn there. She's been with a very successful North Carolina Courage side, and now back with Portland Thorns shows that, this Thorns is just piling up. It's almost like the Avengers, where they're just superheroes coming out here and there, and just it seems to never end. So I see them going a long way. Didn't happen too successfully for them in the last Challenge Cup, but I'm sure they've regrouped. They've come back with a stronger strategy and a mindset. So my player to watch here is one that I've been watching for a while now in the NWSL. So for anybody watching who hasn't gotten involved with it yet, you have to watch out for Megan Klingenberg. So she's a fullback for Portland Thorns and has been one for the US Women's National Team, towards 2015, 2016 is when she really stopped playing for them, or stopped getting picked rather, but she's been one that's consistently been contributing to the Portland Thorns. Sort of the assist machine, or whatever you want to call it, is one who's not just guarding the goal, but also making sure that there are attacking plays taking place. So, Lindsay Horan, Christine Sinclair are all the ones getting the goals and everything, but she's really generating that entire attacking play right from the back. She's got the mindset to move the ball forward and chase the ball if someone's gotten behind her. So she's going to be one to watch for me. And I really see this team going a long way if they get all the parts of their machine right and, oiled well and working together. So that's my thoughts on Portland Thorns. What about you?
Yeah, so the Thorns are practically, if I have to say anything good about the Thorns, it's practically like pulling teeth. So, but here goes. I think this is a great example of, what happens when you do things right. But again, I mean, the owner himself, Paul Merritt, not really a big fan of that. But I think there has been enough of fan influence that sort of has made sure that they do not sort of mess around with how the setup runs for them. So I think that's a great example of how fan pressure can actually ensure that teams are run right. So I think Portland is like a great example of environment where players, you can take anyone from any sort of potential to caliber, and that's the system that players want to come to, because that's basically the epitome of what women's soccer in the world can be like. Like you said, it's basically the Avengers of the league. I wouldn't call them the Justice League as yet because there is no justice there. I think possibly this is the most frightening roster, in the league so far. But my picks are going to be, it's going to be a bunch of players who I think have really worked their butts off. It's going to be Westfall, Tyler Lucy, Everett, Charlie, and Bixby. I mean, within a setup like the Thorns to sort of shine through and make their names to be picked on the starting 11, I think it just goes to show the amount of hard work they're put in to sort of, be there. I mean, I know it's not a single pick, but I really couldn't put one over the other in this scenario when it comes to them. So yeah, that's I think our wrap on the West Division. Your pick for the winner. Who do you think will win this out?
It's got to be Portland Thorns, as much as it breaks my heart. If I had to put my money on it, I'm going to say Portland Thorns. They're just, we've just discussed the entire roster and it's the most frightening it's ever been. I feel like their coach loses hair on his head every year just because of the high intensity matches that, Portland find themselves in time and time again. And it's going to be no different this year. I do see them, coming in very strong. They've had a good preseason run as well. And coming into this Challenge Cup, I feel like they're just going to if they start winning, there's no stopping them really. So Portland Thorns is it for me. And what about you?
I could again go the Homer route and root for the rain. But to be honest, I haven't really seen Farid Ben City be that spark that really inspires the team. I mean, his whole recruitment itself was a little bit of. I think it was perhaps one of the first few very shaky moments in terms of decisions taken by management here. Given that one episode with Farhan where there was definitely body shaming that did happen. I don't really think this has been the brightest spark in the history of the league, in the history of the club. My apologies. Again, just given the chops that we've seen on the pitch, I don't think Farid is the guy that can sort of inspire this team to at least the Challenge Cup. Just given the fact that there are these must-win games every single time that you step on the pitch. So I think the Thorns. I mean, I hate to be the one saying this, but I think the Thorns definitely have the advantage here, and I think that's also my pick for this division. Yeah, and so we do have our two winners. Sorry, you had picked the Courage for East Division, and you picked the Thorns for the West Division. So between your two picks, who do you think will win it all, and why?
I'm going to say the Thorns are going to win it just because I'd like to see Courage not win something. And because, this Challenge Cup, again, we mentioned it's a 1 month high intensity tournament. It's almost like a World Cup. And when you look at that World Cup must-win game, every time you come on the field, you need experienced players in those high-intensity situations. And just then looking at the rosters, you kind of break down who have had more World Cup, more tournament, fast-paced intensity experience. It's going to be the Thorns with Sinclair, who's been around for 10 plus years now. So it's very, very. It's going to be a very close game. That championship match, I'm sure we'll review in the future, is going to be one to watch. But Thorns for me are going to take it unless they have major injuries or something that unfortunate that goes their way. I see Thorns taking this one.
Right. So I had picked Sky Blue from this division. So that means definitely the Courage is not winning anything in my book.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. And I had picked Thorns from the West. I think again I'm gonna stick my neck out. I think we hopefully see a completely brand new champion this time around. I'm really hoping that Sky Blue surprises all of us and just sort of takes the championship. It's a show and I can dream. So yeah, why not?
Why not? Fair enough.
Super. So I think that's fabulous wrap on Challenge Cup, and I'm really, really hoping to see that this lives up to its hype, basically.
For sure, yeah. For everyone listening who's this far, thank you for listening. You can obviously catch all the NWSL Challenge Cup games on Twitch on their official channel where they'll be streaming all the matches. We'll also be sharing a schedule with the Indian Standard Time, so you don't have to go hunting and for time converters and everything. We'll share the schedule with you. Be sure to catch whatever game you can. They're all set to be really tight fixtures as we've mentioned, and watch out for the players we mentioned, but also connect with us, engage with us, and tell us who you like, what was interesting about whichever game you saw. So yeah, that's a wrap from us on this video, and we'll probably start reviewing a few games once every week once the Challenge Cup takes off. So we'll see you then.
All right. Bye-bye. See you.